All right. Let me click OK. So what I'm showing you on the screen right now is the main page for Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I did put that in the chat, and I will need to bring the chat back up because I have other things to put in there for you. Let me do that. Here is a spot to submit your story. So if I click on that, you see 4 options down here. So I'm going to go to possible book topics. And the reason why we're bringing this up now is for the first quarter of 2025, we have a group goal of writing something nonfiction, because Chicken Soup for the Soul only accepts nonfiction. And I had the crazy idea that all of us who are part of the Village Authors could submit something to Chicken Soup by March. There are a lot of possible topics, and so let me copy this and I'll put it in the chat so you have it. Possible topics that they're looking for in different Chicken Soup books. They do many per year, and I will scroll down just real quick. You can read it at your leisure, but they have Change Your Habits and Attitudes, Change Your Life. They give a deadline for this one. It's May 30th. And they give you some ideas of approach of your story. All the stories you submit has to be in first person. It has to be your story. So they don't want any like third party or, it has to be first person. I don't know if they put how many words here. It's probably on their submission guidelines. But anyway, funny stories. If you think you have a story that's funny and hilarious to tell, the deadline for that is April 30th. And they tell you like, the book is scheduled to be published in 2026. So you submit here, they take time, they have to accept, they get thousands of entries. So they take the time to read through the stories, figure out which ones from the thousands. They only pick a few hundred. Like each book, there's only 101 stories that get into each book. So if they get 5,000 for a topic, only 101 getting in. So it's definitely high competition. If you get in, you've done well. And they do pay. I mean, they have paid. I think they still do. They did pay a couple $100 per story that they accept. So that's it's at least something you can do to get some compensation. They have holiday celebrations. Do you have a holiday you want to share? Again, that deadline is here, April 30th. And they give you ideas of what to talk about. Miracles, messages from heaven and angels, stories about pets, and that's it. So those are the topics they have available right now. So you can go in and you will select your topic. Before I get to that page, I'm going to show you the other page. Here is submission fact page. Let me copy that in the chat. Okay. And so, they have a lot of questions in here. Are you accepting submissions? They said they're always looking. They do not pay for the submissions. They only pay for the stories if they publish them in one of their books. Typically 6 months to 2 years after submission. They receive thousands, and like I said, only 101 they pick. How do I submit the story of poem? There's a link for that, and also you had to get to that from the main area. Maximum of 1,200 words. So it's not a huge story. 1,200 words. So if you got wordy on something you've written already, just cut it down to the bare minimum so that it fits within the 1,200. There's no limit to the number of stories you submit. So you can submit to each of the topics that they have. You can submit multiple for a topic that they have. They're going to read through everything and figure out which ones they want. Deadlines. I showed you where the deadlines were. They said you can submit to another publication. So like, you can submit to say the Village Authors, um, anthology, but to let them know that it is a simultaneous submission. And I think they have a comment section on the submission form, so you can let them know if you are also submitting it someplace else. And how will I know if my story poem is selected? They they average 100 stories a day. This is how many submissions they get every day. It can take years to fully develop it. The process is very long. So they said, don't contact them, but they are good about sending you an email back, if you got in. I don't think they tell you when they received it, but I don't tell you if they don't want it. They only tell you if you want it. I remember 1 month early, I guess it was 2021, I got surprised with 2 emails in the same month for 2 different. I thought it was going to be the same book, but then they ended up saving the other story for a different book. And they'll let you know that too. Like if they say, hey, we had, in my case, they had so many that they wanted to put into the first book, and I already had a story in that book. They said, we're going to save your story. We're going to hold on to it and put it in a different one. And it took them a couple of months to figure out which story to put it in, but they chose one and told me which one it was, and we went on from there. This doesn't apply to us because we're all in the US. They don't take title or topic ideas from the public, so don't send them. It's funny all the questions they get. Keeping your contact information up to date. All right, they tell you how to do this. Is after the fact. Okay, so that's basically it. 1,200 words. We'll go to the next story guidelines. And let me put that in the chat as well. All right. So they give you can go through this and read it. They give you ideas to how to give yourself the best chance of being accepted. Heartwarming, exciting, tell your story in a way that would make the reader cry, laugh, or get goosebumps. It should start in action, draw in the reader. And mind you, this is advice that's useful even for fiction. So it's a good page to book note, like if you're writing just other stories, other types of stories, to keep in mind, because you want to start in the action when you're writing fiction. You want to, speak from the heart of your characters. Like you want to be able to grab people in. So a lot of these still apply, even fiction. But this is all nonfiction. It's got to be true stories. So they say, tighten your story. It's got to be 1,200 words or less. Must be true. No fiction, no creative writing. What it is not a sermon, an essay, or eulogy. It is not an as told to. So it's not you interviewing somebody and telling their story. It's like, it's gotta be your story. It's not a term paper, not about politics or controversial issues. It's not a biography or testimonial. It's not journalistic. You're just telling a story about an event that happened in your life. Guidelines, they accept poems. So for those of you who have poems that tell your story, they absolutely accept poems that tell a story. But they have to tell a story, not just, the birds and the how beautiful things are. It has to be a poem that tells the story of your life, like what happened to you. Let's see. And they're not concerned about rhyming, greeting cards. They just tell your story in poetic form. That's it. And then they have some other ideas here. How to submit. They can't help you with personal computer problems. Only stories or poems that have not been previously published. But the exception is if where you published was only a small amount of people, like say you published something and it was only like for your small little group, or maybe just at your college, or like, I think they'll still accept it, but put that into your notes. If it was published somewhere else, tell them, they'll figure out if that venue was too large. So I'd say better to try than not. um, and they don't want any book manuscripts unless through a literary agent. So no, they're not there for books. This is really just for individual stories, less than 1,200 pages. They said be patient. They'll have a screen that pops up and say thank you. Um, what I did, since they don't send emails back when you don't get in, I looked for when the book was planned to be published. If, because they usually want to give themselves, I would say, at least 4 to 6 months so they can work with you to edit the story. So if you see a date in December, but you haven't heard anything from them, say like by August, then just figure you didn't get into that book because they would have already started working with you. I remember I had gotten an acceptance in January for a book that was coming out in June. So they needed like that 5 months period. So if you're that close to the release time, just figure, okay, that story didn't make it in, and you move on. But feel free to check Chicken Soup ever so often because they do update their topics. So they might, if you didn't see a topic that you have a story in you for, just keep checking. I would say every couple of months, keep coming back to this page, um, the possible book topics, because they might have something in there um, for you, or you could try again. And then here we have the submit your story. And I'll put that in the chat. Oh, where am I? Trying to paste in my other. Let's do that again. Okay. How to submit your story. Oh, I guess they're having, oh, they want to see if I'm human. There we go. Let's see here. So put your name in, your email address, your mailing address, your city, your state. We don't have provinces, zip code, country, phone, your name that you want on your story. So if you have a pen name, you can put it there, or, your real name, story title, and then comments, that's where you would put, hey, I published it somewhere else, or hey, I am submitting also to someplace else. This is where you would put that. This is where you would select your topic. So just one of the 5 that they have right now. And then you would paste your story in here. So when you paste it, if the format doesn't look right, you could fix it up within that box because it's text is going to strip like your paragraphing and all that. So fix it up, make it look readable. And then, they have the terms of use and privacy policy. So you read those 2 things, click that box when you're done. And they tell you, please make sure your information is correct. You only submit one at a time. So this box here, only one poem or one story. You come in, you go to the link again. After you submit, you go in the link again and to do a second one. So you don't put more than one in the box. You have to say you're not a robot. And then when you're done, you click submit and they tell you do not close the screen, be patient, wait for the next screen to come up, that the submission was successful. We have your work in our system. Thank you. This is the only confirmation you will receive. If you do not receive this message, we did not receive your work. And they tell you try again. And they said you will not receive another email acknowledging receipt. So you do just wait until it clicks on through, and then you're good to go. and then you can try another story. So that's pretty much the process. Once, you know, God willing, you do get in a story into one of their books, you are able to um, order copies for yourself to sell, which is how I'm able to sell copies at, my book venues. They will send you, initially you'll get a few free copies, which is nice because, but then if you want to buy more, you can buy more. So you do get free copies and they pay you. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much is. It's very challenging to get into. So, like I said, for the first quarter, the goal is to submit. We want everybody to submit. We can't guarantee you getting in or not, but just the act of submitting really frees up something inside of you to let you know, I can do this. I can submit to other things, because that's usually some of the hardest thing is pushing that button and letting your work go out so somebody can judge it. Um, and who knows, we might have from this a few of us, maybe all of us getting in, you never know. But our goal is for everybody in the Village Writers to at least submit a story to the Chicken Soup, just so you have the experience of doing it one time. Now, if you want some, those of us in the group to look it over before you submit it, just to make sure it's as tight as it can be, um, I'd be willing to read, stories for you guys, just to, that it sounds good. Or even just to catch whatever errors, because sometimes it's hard to see your own errors, misspelled words or the wrong word, or, commas in the wrong place, just things like that, just so that when we submit it, we're looking shiny. So that's it. Is all I have for Chicken Soup for the Soul and the first quarter, um, you know, topic that we are going to have writing a nonfiction story.
That's awesome. I'm my only dismay is I'm mad that they don't have a process to submit by PDF, because going through that little box, that's the most annoying thing. Refiguring, reformatting your paragraphs, your spaces, and all of that. The only consolation is it's only 1,200 words, but good Lord. Good Lord.
I know.